It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Well, it is going to be a fantastic, beautiful day, as you can see here at NOLA Motorsports Park. We're getting ready for the first ever race of the Miles Cup here in the Ford Mustang Cup at New Orleans in Louisiana. And of course, I'm Joe Peak here with Joey Atterbury to bring you all the action out on track. Joey, we've got the qualifying done. The drivers have been testing, they've been prepping. Now they have to put pedal to the metal.
It is that race time finally out there. So these drivers have gone through their 3 practice sessions on yesterday throughout the entire day and qualified here this morning. I think the biggest difference, it's always a talking point, is the temperature. Both the ambient air temperature and the track temperature have picked up significantly from what we saw in qualifying earlier today. So it's up to these drivers to understand those conditions, especially with a full load of fuel and those same tires that they qualified on, and then get out there and perform.
And really quick, let's go through our starting order. It's going to be Lucas starting on the pole with Capaldi next to him on the front row, but they are in 2 different classes, with Capaldi in the Legends class. Cochran starts in 3rd today, followed by Buell, then Smither in P5, Strauss in 6th, Richmond in 7th, Bobco in 8th, and Hordes starting 9th. We've got the cars lined up 2 by 2, ready to go racing, and see how this new series plays out. Safety car is in, and they come down the long main straight. You can see just how long it is down to that first corner, so it is going to be critical getting a good start here for an opportunity to pass as they wait for the signal from the stand. There it is. The horses are out of the barn, and we are ready to go racing here in Mustang Cup. And it's a good run down to that first corner by our pole sitter. Lucas obviously covers off the inside just to make sure he isn't challenged into their 3rd place. Is going to have to chop off as Cochran holds on to that P3 over Buell.
And now we get into this much more technical section of what is turn number 3. These cars are going to most likely be going down to 3rd gear, some of them even to 2nd gear, especially on these cold tires, while they figure out all the grip levels.
This is the slower, more technical part of the circuit here. Then drivers will really be able to unleash the power underneath the hood of these Mustangs. Coming off of turn 4 and 5, it does look like it is a good exit there for Lucas, who continues to stretch away, while Cochran, back in 3rd overall, seems to still have Smither behind him, giving a challenge for that P4. But Cochran and Smither, again, 2 different classes. You'll be looking for the cars with the blue boxes who have our Drivers Legends, Dark Horse Legends class that are racing for those who are over 45 years of age. And then the Dark Horse is basically everybody else out there competing. Coming to the end of the lap now, Joey, and just about have our first racing laps done in the Miles Cup.
Yeah, and it's a little bit reflective of what we saw in qualifying with Will Lucas out here definitely leading the way. Craig Capaldi essentially trying to give chase, but this number 34 car has been the fastest car all weekend. Will Lucas has really kind of set the pace, and he's doing it again here on the first lap of the race. The race has crossed that 1 lap, and he's currently doing about a 1:45 lap time, maybe a little bit slower, maybe a little bit faster, depending on the lap.
Smithers still hunting back there in 3rd on Cochran, but Capaldi looking like he closes in a bit on the start of the second lap. Quick chicane here to kick things off on this one.
Yeah, and I actually saw that Smither was taking a look down the inside of Cochran down there to turn number 1. But, Joe, you are absolutely right. Will Lucas was really able to kind of stretch it out in Sector 2 on that opening lap. But it seems like now that Capaldi has got that machine all warmed up, he is starting to close that gap back up.
Thought I saw a piece of something kind of flying off to the side there coming through turn 3. Not sure if that was just some paper or if there was actually a bit of bodywork that maybe had fallen off from lap 1. I didn't see or hear about any car contact, so it would be highly unusual if we did. But yes, Capaldi racing in the Legends category and Lucas racing in the Dark Horse category. These are not competing for points, but the drivers did say they want to try and take the overall win. What's interesting is I talked to Lucas after his pole, and I said, how hard are you going to race for that overall win? He said, we have a gentleman's agreement about if it gets too hard, then maybe they'll back off a little bit.
Well, and then when I talked with Craig Capaldi after qualifying, I asked him, you're going to go up there and try to grab that overall victory, classes, just kind of toss them out the window. And he goes, well, you know what, that's what I'm here for. I want to go up and stand on that top step. And he's got a challenge right now. Will Lucas, like I said, has kind of been setting the pace all weekend long, but Craig has kind of just been right there. Of course, one of those 5 Capaldi racing cars now in the race.
Certainly looking good at this stage as we follow them down into turn 1. He's going to stay in the racing line, at least for this time, not attempting to try and sneak by him. Maybe just waiting for something better a little bit later on in the race. It is 40 minutes plus 1 lap that they are competing here for race number 1. So there's still lots of time left with 35 minutes plus 1 lap on the board currently. And coming down through 3 and 4 once again, it does look like, Joey, that this is a very strong P2.
Well, and Craig, I've known Craig for, over a decade now, as well as that entire Capaldi racing effort. Craig is no slouch behind the wheel of a Mustang, and this is not the first generation Mustang that he has experience with. It goes way back, so Craig very familiar with this platform of car, albeit this is a new car to him. He definitely understands how to hustle these Fords around the racetrack.
Coming off of the very swift turn 8, we also have a special guest with us, Dan. We're glad to have you in here, or Chris, excuse me, pardon me. Chris Ward is with us to talk a little bit about Ford's involvement here in the Mustang Cup. How did this come about?
Thanks so much for having us here, and welcome everybody tuning in from all over the world, and to the fans here that have made it out to NOLA this weekend. We've greeted with spectacular weather all week this week. What a great day. The inaugural round of Mustang Cup North America. Very, very exciting for everyone involved in the program here at Ford Performance. Last year, the debut of Mustang Challenge over in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship paddock. But here, sanctioned by USAC, Mustang Cup, round 1 here at NOLA Motorsports Park. A new piece of content for us. Same car in both championships, but absolutely thrilled with the debut round of this season. Drivers seem to be loving the Yokohama tyre on the car here, and loving the environment and the atmosphere that USAC have created in this paddock.
Oh, we're glad to have both the drivers and you as well. And talk to us a little bit about the car, because, as you mentioned, it is the same car that Challenge runs. But I've heard nothing but good things from the drivers. In fact, some of them who have their Mustang as a daily driver have said it feels almost the same.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, that was the ethos, the fundamental principles of the design and development of this car, with the wonderful Mustang Dark Horse street car, taking the best assets of that car and then developing it as a thoroughbred, to use the same horse analogy, but a thoroughbred on the racetrack. And great sounding car. Developed in principle for the lady or gentleman driver, in particular here in Mustang Cup. for those drivers that are looking to take that step from grassroots racing into their first foray into wheel-to-wheel racing in a, let's call it semi-professional or indeed professional racing environment. The two classes of competition here, as you've already alluded to, lend themselves really well with the dark horse class for those young and up-and-coming drivers that we can see having a very spirited battle at the front of the field, to the dark horse legends for those drivers age 45 or over.
Yeah, in fact, we're seeing a bit of a battle here, not just with Smither, who, since we last looked, is actually getting past Cochran, so moves Smither into the overall second place, although Cochran's going to take a look down to the inside, try and sneak that one back through. Very close there, Joey, but I get the sense that Cochran doesn't like the fact that Buell, who is fighting him for points, is now directly behind.
That's a good point. Yeah, he's got a competitor directly behind in that white number 8 car, and that is for class position. You see him kind of poking the nose down to the inside of what is turn number 3 down there. So maybe just a high speed, low speed, just a little bit off between these two drivers. But you're right, that lime green machine of Chase Cochran wants to get back up into, call it 3rd place overall, and that was pretty deep on the brakes. These cars are doing about 150 miles an hour down the front straightaway here, and the brakes handle every single bit of it.
The drivers even said to me, because we consider this a slightly heavier car in terms of sports car racing, and even then, Chris, I asked the drivers, how were the brakes? They all said they were wowed at how quickly it stopped at the end of that front stretch. Our
Brembo brakes on this car, they do a really, really wonderful job of, we've got this, I forget how long this front straightaway is, but what is it, over a quarter of a mile, I think. And, going into turn 1, the gentlemen stand on the brakes here, and the Brembos do a wonderful job of slowing the car down.
And I've driven several generations of Mustang race car that go all the way back to the Boss 302R when we had just a single piece rotor on the rear end, and the cars have come so far with the huge Brembo brake systems now. It really is confidence inspiring to the drivers.
Still confidence needed to try and get by Smither here for Cochran. And he is sitting second in the dark horse class right now. Again, that is for P2 and P3 between himself and Cale Buell, who sits behind, while Smither is a long ways away from P2 overall at this stage, who is Capaldi, currently leading in that Legends class. Another look up the inside, but still unable to sneak on through as you see them come out of 1 and into 2. This is where things slow up. We saw some defensive moves as well, Joey, by Smither down into 3.
Yeah, and that was at this exact corner, that last previous lap here. And once again, Smither just a little bit wide off of that turn-in apex. And turn 3 is a little bit tricky. That was a huge save from Cale Buell there at a huge moment of oversteer. And you got to remember, these cars do not have traction control systems in them. So it is up to the driver to manage that right pedal. There's a lot of horsepower in it, and you can easily spin up those rear tires.
And to Chris's point, as this is an introductory series, Cale is one of those drivers who is coming in from racing in club racing and things such as that, track days, and so he's really cutting his teeth out there. And also, I understand, enjoyed the traditional H-pattern gearbox. Again, not a thing you see a lot in modern race cars, and I'm loving.
Something really unique as a one-make series is having that manual transmission, and the drivers really love that engaging. I particularly love it as they're making those transitions into the braking zones, and we have a rev matching strategy on the engine platform to ease those transmission changes and make them as smooth as possible. But the sound of the V8, the Coyote V8s, as they enter the braking zones is second to none.
Really hassling Nick Smither is Chase Cochran, but he falls off coming down on the critical front straight. He's lost some lap up into the front of him, and Smither will skitter away, at least for the time being. Not a chance to try and pass him this time into the braking of turn 1. While it does look like Capaldi holds our fastest lap of the race, currently in that number 68. So I know we haven't looked at them in a while, but it does look like he is keeping him honest, Joey.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because, like you said, Will Luke is in that dark horse class while Craig is in the Legends class. Yet Craig has that faster lap time of 1:47.30. So I think that just kind kind of shows you the performance that Craig Capaldi can do out there. But we got to remember, this is a 40-minute race. The temperatures are definitely starting to get warmed up, and that means the drivers are working inside that car, not only physically, but the brain is working every single turn, every single brake marker, every single apex point. You got to be on top of it.
There is Craig on our screen in the white machine. That's Lucas just ahead of him. It's about 3.7 seconds we're seeing right now between the pair of them. So Lucas has got himself at least out of arm's reach right now, but he can't have any sort of major mistake because Capaldi will be able to capitalize on that without a doubt. Out through 12 and into 13. Long right-hand corner here to try and really manage and get that throttle down to unleash that 500-plus horsepower.
When I talked with Craig, before this race, he was really loving the power down that these dark horse R's are able to put. We saw Caleb Buell have that huge power slide moment a little bit earlier, but if the driver's really patient on that throttle, this car really squats down nicely, both in the acceleration phase and in that deceleration phase when we were talking about the brakes earlier. The grip that's coming out of these Yokohama tires as well as this race car is pretty impressive.
Here's on board with Caleb Buell. Still following that battle for P3 overall. Smither ahead of Chase Cochran, and now they're starting to separate a little bit. We can get a little bit of stats on them. It is in kilometers per hour, but I saw just about 235 down into the brake zone at the end of this front straightaway. You can see the G-forces as well that they're pulling around this 14-turn circuit.
I think that's about 150 miles an hour if we do the calculations. Maybe a touch slower depending on how well they get off of that final corner, how much rumble they really decide to run over. But I think what I'm noticing is that ever since Smither has gotten behind Chase Cochran in that lime green machine, Chase hasn't gone anywhere. And remember, we saw this driver who we're riding on board with have that huge power slide moment, but it's actually Cale that's closing it in that little bit. He actually, 150.897 puts him right on top of those two that are directly in front of him. We'll see if he can close that gap a little bit.
Watching Lucas come down to the braking of turn 11. But noticing as well, Joey, that some of these curbs, especially right here, the inside of 12, he seems a lot more comfortable, does Will, really getting that wheel up on there, while others seem a little unsettled.
I think that depending on the area of the racetrack and depending on the speed of the corner, now every racetrack's going to be a little bit different. Some of the drivers might use those apex curbs or those inside curbs on the slower corners to really help rotate the car, and then it comes down to that power off phase that we were talking about that this car does such a good job at. Everything is just managing those front tires through the high-speed sections. They've got these nice aerodynamic bits with the splitters on the front, but it's still up to the driver to judge that rate of speed.
Worth mentioning also, we don't know, what the election of different spring rates was chosen by the engineers for these cars. They've had a considerable amount of track time during the race weekend to really dial in these cars, and I think some of what you're talking about could be those engineering choices on different spring rates, but another piece that gives the teams and the drivers some tunability, if you like, in the wonderful Multimatic DSSV dampers that we have, and then the very different spring rates.
Those shocks are amazing, those DSSV dampers, and then like you said, the couple different spring rates that they got available to them. I know that the Capaldi racing team was out there doing some testing a couple weeks ago, at least with one of the cars. They were definitely trying out those different spring packages, so that could also be what we see between the performance difference.
Indeed, and it does seem like Lucas has got a very well set up car. As we said, it is taking curbs in places that some of the other drivers just struggle with a little bit. And as we hop on board with the number 5, this is with Miller Richmond, the local, who is out here racing. Looks like he is trying to tussle with John Strauss. This is for 6th overall, but also another of our situations where it's between classes. Strauss racing in the Legends, while Richmond is in the Dark Horse.
And it's pretty cool, Miller Richmond, because he's in racing here this year with the USAC and the Mustang Cup. He's also doing Ultra 4 competition. He's building a couple of off-road vehicles for that. So we oftentimes get drivers from different disciplines, but not too much from the off-road like that.
Yeah, I do love seeing that crossover and drivers really trying different styles of motorsports and showing some versatility. Richmond still running in that 7th spot, but he is sitting in 4th in class, so just outside of the podium. If he can catch back up to Buell. Maybe get himself a trophy for today. And this is the pair of them now coming back onto that main straight and past us down into turn 1. Doesn't look like we're going to get anything out of Miller down into this first corner. So John Strauss, hailing from Florida, so not too far of a leap here, is able to hold on to that P6.
Nicely done so far. Call it the first 20 minutes of this race. It definitely has been our pole sitter, Will Lucas, that's easily set the pace up front. You know, Craig Capaldi's given chase by about 4 seconds back, but I've really been impressed with the battle for what is third and fourth, as well as what we're watching right here between Miller, Richmond, as well as Strauss. I think that this is good, respectful racing going on, especially from some drivers that might know the track a little bit better than others.
For our viewers that are wondering how to tell the two classes apart, if you see the tower on the left-hand side of your screen, the red cars are going to be your dark horse class, whereas the blue boxes around the numbers are going to be your dark horse legends. So that's how to tell who is racing for what. Again, drivers can try to compete for overall, as we're seeing here, coming down through the S's. And it looks like Cochran not able to quite sneak by, but he's definitely got Smither on the ropes, forcing him to go defensive, coming down into the braking of turn 11. He'll hold that inside line, but if he could stay outside, Joey, he could have the inside into long turn 12.
Yeah, it's a long bending left-hander, but Smither does a nice job, and you see Chase just trying to search for a little bit of clean air, maybe try to get the nose tucked into this last couple of corners here. But if I'm that bright green number 4 machine, I'm focused on this turn, the final turn right here. Try to get the power down, especially over those rumbles, and then sit in that slipstream. We've seen Chase really use that draft and poke the nose down into turn number 1.
And just as that happened, we had a swap between Richmond and Strauss. So now Miller is up into 6th. Strauss gets pushed down into 7th. Another little of a peek from the green machine, but nothing doing at this stage. Cochran, of course, going to be heading over to his teammate Shane for the Parnelli Cup a little bit later on. They're the only team that is sharing the car this weekend.
And that's pretty cool that we have 2 different championship styles, you know, and maybe, Chris, you can kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I was about to add, it's one of the unique features of the Mustang Cup is that a gentleman, father, son, husband, wife even, could share the car during the course of the weekend. So 3 practice sessions for Mustang Cup, and then 2 qualifying and 2 races. So, you know, a paired driver lineup can share the car. Could be 2 friends, as is the case with the number 4. The 2 of them sharing that car, thus subsequently being able to share the cost. And pretty unique format in one make series.
And I do love that they're doing that. Shane and Chase have said that it was kind of a 2 heads are better than 1 situation for them. That they can both attack this because they are a very small team and very much punching above their weight class, Joey, because this is, again, a fight for overall podium. While that isn't for any sort of points or anything special, they're showing that even with a small get-together, they can manage to find some speed out of this thing.
It was really cool to go around and talk to all of the different drivers over the last couple days here. And you're right, Chase in the group is all the way up from Wyoming. So they had a very long haul to make it all the way down here to Louisiana, a track that they've never even been to before and are performing extremely well.
Thought he maybe was going to have a look there coming through 13 and 14. He managed to get a nose inside for a brief moment and still unable to try and execute down into turn 1 once again, but certainly forcing Smither to have to look in those mirrors maybe more frequently than he would have liked.
Speaking of distances traveled, it would be remiss of me not to mention the huge distance that we'll be traveling in June. So a number of our competitors from Mustang Challenge and indeed several from Mustang Cup will be taking on the magnificent Le Sarthe circuit at Le Mans, France during the Le Mans 24-hour race this June. We are humbled and delighted to be invited as one of the support feature races for this year's running of the Le Mans 24-hour endurance race, and we couldn't be more excited. We expect in excess of 40 dark horse ours to be participating in an event with customers from all over the world. I've just returned from Australia, where we had a number of interested customers there, and stay tuned for news on Mustang Cup possibly arriving on those shores in the not too distant future as we expand our horizons for the One Make Series.
That's exactly what I was going to kind of lead into. I don't know how much of it is actually unveiled, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing these dark horse R's not only on the North American continent, but a few different continents of racing.
Absolutely. It's part of our key strategy. We have so many fans of the Ford Blue Oval globally, and the reception that we received having shipped a car over to Australia for the round one of SRO GT World Challenge at Phillip Island this past weekend. The reception to the car was tremendous.
And I can tell you, because I've actually been to Le Mans myself, was there back in 2023, and from what I gathered from fans over there, I think the thing I'm most interested in hearing is getting to see their reaction when they hear these cars, because that's what we noticed when we showed up at the track earlier this week and these things hit the pavement. These sound fantastic.
Can you imagine 40 plus of them barreling down the Mulsanne straight into the chicane there? It's going to be really a sight to behold. All of us at Ford Performance are very much looking forward to it.
Still riding on board with Buell. Kind of surprised he hasn't gotten more into this fight here, Joey. Seems to be just a little bit too far away to pick up on some of the back and forth that Chase and Nick have had.
You're right. I think that Kale has done a terrific job after that little bit of oversteer moment that we caught. I mean, that was, a good 10 laps ago now at this point. But he has reeled them back in. But you look at the performance levels out of all these drivers. I mean, the cars are literally on top of each other in terms of what they are capable of. And these three drivers, they haven't been separated by more than, call it 0.2, maybe 0.3 of a second per lap. And so when you're so close stacked on top of each other, it's those little mistakes, those little bits of time that can cost you in terms of closing that gap.
On the run down into the break on the back stretch once again. Just a little off the apex there for Kale. Can't quite seem to get it to turn in to hold on to the back of them. They're starting to run out of time. We're past halfway through this race now with about 16 minutes left to go on the clock, plus one lap, don't forget. So once they get the clock down to 0, the next time by is when you will see the white flag, Joey.
And down the front straight right in front of us here in the broadcast tower, Chase is definitely all over the back end of Smither, taking another look down into turn number 1. So it's going to be pretty interesting. He's constantly been applying the pressure to the back end of that number 58 car. So I wonder if Nick is going to be able to hang on to it. And as I say that, it was actually Chase Cochran that ran out 2 wheels into the dirt right there off of what looked to be the exit at turn number 2.
Yeah, not too surprising. This is a track with a number of big braking zones and difficulty, especially in the high-speed corners, trying to manage the front end of the car. As we continue to watch Lucas, I think he's coming upon a bit of lap traffic, and yeah, he just went by. That is Andrew Hortz, another driver that's just starting to learn the ropes out here. And I do love that Ford is doing this and created a program like this, because as we know, Chris, it is difficult sometimes to get your foot in the door of racing and know where to start. So it's so cool to see you guys offering a chance for young, new racers to really experience this level.
No, absolutely. And speaking of young racers, again, one of our objectives was the launch of our new for 2025, the Ford Performance Junior Driver Program. So we have 6 drivers who participated in Mustang Challenge last year, who were inducted into the inaugural class of the Ford Performance Junior Program, and delighted to see a number of those making their way up into GT4 competition this year, and also a debut weekend for Jason Altsman in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, running in a Mustang GT3 car at the Long Beach Grand Prix. So really, as you indicated, a really important part of our strategy is finding that new young talent. And personally, I will take great pleasure when we meet that 14, 15-year-old driver in Mustang Cup, watch them graduate through Cup into Challenge, and then ultimately into GT4 and GT3. And of course, The dream would be then, of course, standing on the grid of Le Mans with them in our LMDH car as a Ford Performance factory driver. That would be, that's several years down the road, but would be lovely to meet that young driver here this weekend and see them carry that whole journey through with us to Le Mans in, who knows, 8-10 years' time. That would be a dream.
And I know you mentioned Altman there, and it was really fun to watch his career, progress up through GT4, and then now, like you said, is up in those Mustang GT3 cars. But I really like this ladder system that you guys have essentially created here with this new Dark Horse R. It's all the Mustang platform, so you're not hopping between different chassis. Yeah, you go from the Dark Horse R to the GT4, but they're so similar in how they actually look and how they feel.
Front engine V8 drivetrains, yes, they are. They're more advanced platforms the higher up the ladder that you go. But I think unique to us as a brand is that we offer that from grassroots development platform through Cup, as I said, then into Challenge GT4, GT3, and as I said, ultimately then into the LMDH platform in 2027.
I was very excited when I saw that announcement that Ford was returning to prototype racing and seeing what you guys can do. So happy to see that become a part of your global program. And right now, with about 12 minutes plus a lap left to go, the program for Lucas is to bring this one home. Craig Capaldi now about 9 seconds behind of the overall, but we should mention, as much as we've harped on Craig not able to take the overall lead, he is still our current leader in Dark Horse Legends.
Yeah, and actually I think a lot of that gap came from these last couple of laps. Remember, we saw Will Lucas be able to get by some of the lap traffic very efficiently, and that last lap out of Craig was a 152. You compare that to his usual 149s that he was turning, so that's definitely about 3 seconds off. I think that he was being patient, getting by that number 23 out there, which is, of course, what we want to see, is everybody playing on the playground together.
Just checking the lap times here, because I had mentioned many laps ago that Miller Richmond had passed John Strauss for that 6th spot, and it looks like the lap times are marginally quicker between Richmond and Buell on Miller's side, but I don't think he's going to be quick enough to run him down, as it's about 7 seconds between them right now. So not sure that he's going to be able to try and fight for the podium, but you never know. A lot can happen in 10 minutes.
It's pretty impressive, the performance out of Will Lucas right now. I think that he's just been able to manage the race from out front. He hasn't been phased at all by Craig Capaldi, essentially hanging tough in the rearview mirror. Will has just simply been on rails out there, hitting every single brake mark, hitting all of the apexes, chopping up those apex curves that we've really seen help rotate the car, and he's handling it all well.
I think all the drivers out there doing a great job keeping that focus, that concentration with 10 minutes to go in the race, little over 10 minutes to go in the race. I imagine it's getting quite warm in that cockpit now. Many of them, the first wheel-to-wheel racing combat that they've done in this platform. And where we got an air temperature of 73, 75 degrees. Track temperature will, of course, be above that. Really, really impressed with the job that all the drivers are doing out there.
Yeah, in fact, we've got Walter Bobko out there in the 98 coming from Canada and coming down here to race, but he said that he wasn't having too much of an issue with the heat. I'm glad that's the case, because as soon as he mentioned that was my first thought. Joey is probably not used to Louisiana weather.
It can be hot and humid down here, but actually today is quite mild. Yes, it is warm, but yesterday was kind of low 80s, so almost another 10 degrees warmer out here, and I'm sure that the drivers inside the race cars are a little bit thankful of slightly cooler temperatures. Remember, these are big V8s. The headers, they run right by that transmission tunnel, so it can definitely get hot inside of these race cars. That's
a good point. And managing that, we've seen every single one has their cool suits on as well underneath their fire suits, so trying to make sure and manage that human element that comes with racing. As we continue to watch Craig Capaldi bring it around that final triple right-hander onto the front stretch once again. The good news for Craig is that Smither, even though it looks like he is maybe mildly quicker at this stage, the gap is almost 28 seconds right now. So Craig did what he needed to do and has put himself pretty far out of range of losing that lead.
Yeah, and just kind of talking about those two, remember it was actually a trio. Cale Buell is kind of fallen off of that battle by about 5 seconds right now. 151.3 was the last lap out of that number 8 car. So still all a learning experience for all of these drivers, but especially some of the younger drivers out here.
No doubt. I was kind of thinking about that with Cale. He's definitely a young guy coming in to try and figure things out here, and I wonder if maybe there's a few lessons to come away with it. That's one thing that you always stress, Joey, is every race is a chance to learn something new.
And not only every race, but every lap out there. It can be practice, it can be qualifying, and it doesn't matter if you're on top of your game or you're just starting out. It is all a learning experience. If you turn in a little bit too early or turn in a little bit too late, roll on the throttle too early, there's always something you can learn out there. And then, of course, all of these drivers are in communication with their teams on the radio, so they've got somebody in their ear, helping coach them forward, helping them coach them through this heat.
And Chris, I assume that there's probably lots of data that you guys get out of these cars that can help these drivers as well.
There is a huge amount of data that we can gather from all the cars. So our Ford Performance Support team here that come to every round of Mustang Cup and Mustang Challenge, after every session, they plug into the cars, they download all that data. Me being fairly new to the team here, actually sat in on that evaluation session after qualifying, and there's reams of data that they download from every car, some very clever analysis tools to make sure that everyone is staying, let me say, within the rules, so we're able to monitor the cars from a performance aspect and also proactively help the teams and the drivers. If we see something spurious in the data, we can then proactively go back to that driver and or team with some helpful suggestions on how they might be able to improve the car. So the whole support team here at Ford Performance doing a wonderful job, and yes, a lot of data on these cars now.
You could see another overtake, but that was lapping the car of Andrew Hordes as both Smither and Cochran carry on that battle. Every once in a while they must be getting somewhat close, because our timing and scoring shows a blip of something going on, but they don't change positions. So he's at least keeping within range of him. He's fallen back to almost 2 seconds, maybe about a second and a half now from that red, white, and blue 58, Joey.
Yeah, and just while we still have Chris here in the broadcast booth, I got to ask you, have you gotten behind the wheel of one of these new Dark Horse cars yet?
I have not had the opportunity to yet. There are very strict rules and regulations within the company about employees driving the cars, but I've already escalated that to my superiors to see if we can't circumvent some of that. I'd love to have a go.
I was going to say, Joey's raced under Mustangs quite a bit, so maybe if you can convince one of them to let him hop in the car, he could maybe take you around.
There we go.
So, still holding on for that battle for P3. This has been one of the closest fights the whole race long, with now 5 minutes plus a lap left to go on the clock. And Nick Smither, I got to give him credit, Joey. I mean, he's been soaking up this pressure.
100%. And remember, he started behind Chase Cochran back there. So not only has he made the pass, but he's hung on to it. That was really deep off of that back straightaway, though. That's going to allow that number 4 to close in that gap. So what was about 1 second, maybe 10 car lengths, has now evaporated down to about 1 car length between the two of them. And once again, a really nice wide entry from Cochran there in that number 4 car. Should square up the exit and then sit in the slipstream down the straightaway.
Feels like he's been playing a watching brief for that, maybe calling off the tyres just for a couple of laps for a last 5-minute dash to see if he can't make up that position.
Ooh, he's going to look for it. He goes down the inside, but he can't get the overlap into the corner, although he does shake him off the racing line. Going through, but maybe the outside of turn 2. He is now fully ahead. Chase Cochran is going to put himself into the overall podium.
That was a great racecraft move, just kind of presented the car down to the inside of turn number 1, and sometimes that's all you need to do is get that driver a little bit unsighted, and you saw the big wiggle there in turn number 3, just like how we saw a little bit earlier out of Cale. So Chase Cochran, even though he made that pass, he is looking to try to run away now.
Yes, just using that beard power, I suppose. If you're in the paddock and you haven't met Chase yet, just look for the giant red beard. You can't miss him, and he is going to probably get a little bit of champagne in it today after having an excellent race up to second in class, and now third overall here in our first race of the Miles Cup. Now with 3 minutes plus a lap left to go, with the decent amount of lap time it does take to get around here. We're looking at 1:49s, it looks like, for our quickest cars. Lucas out there. Once they hit that 2-minute mark, it's likely going to be towards the end.
Seeing Will do 1:49s, he's been remarkably consistent throughout the entire duration of the race, really showing experience beyond his years. Very, very impressed with the young man.
That's exactly what I was going to point out, is usually when we look at consistency, if you're always there within a half second, it's great. If it's within a quarter of a second, even better. And Will Lucas really hasn't been phased out of that 1:49 at all for what is 20 laps that he's been going around this place now. And you got to remember, there's about 15 shifts also that these cars are doing in that H-pattern gearbox, so he's been able to manage everything to a T.
Could see quite a bit of weaving there from Cochran down the main straight. He wasn't trying to block, but he was definitely trying to break the slipstream. He knows that Nick has a chance to try and fight back on him if he stays close out of that final corner, but nothing doing down into turn one, at least this time by. So little time left for Cochran to have to try and play defense to hold on to P3. Question is, can he do it? It definitely takes a wide entry here into turn 5.
That really helped him out the previous lap when he made the pass, though, and look at that, it really helps him kind of provide the drive out of what is, call it, turn number 4 and 5 over there. So, but the dynamic has changed, right? Chase has been following Nick this entire race, and now he's got a clear windshield out the front, a little bit wide there, the same exact thing that he did that previous lap, and it just allows that white, red, and blue number 58 to close it in.
Oh, he's looking down to the inside. This is coming up to turn 9. That's a very fast corner. Both of them on the brakes, and that's going to actually cause Smither to have to go very wide himself, maybe just unsighted into the turn, and that allows Cochran to scamper away. So tense moments here at the end of the race. Got to keep your wits about you.
And it was definitely just the driver being unsighted. These cars produce an extreme amount of grip. You're not going to get a ton of aero wash, especially if you're tucked up right behind the bumper of one. So the driver just trying to find those apexes back behind this big old Mustang.
Let's not forget this timing is based on the overall leader. There was another bobble out of Chase coming out of turn 16. Joey, there's not a lot to hit around here, but the pit wall is definitely one of them.
Yeah, and you've got to be careful over those exit rumbles, too. It can definitely upset the car. You know, when you think about the tire going over the pavement, it's typically a smooth surface, but those exit rumbles are kind of stepped alligator curves. So you actually have the tire coming off of the ground slightly over each one of those steps. It can definitely reduce the traction.
There's our overall leader, Will Lucas, coming around to the back straight away. Trying to figure out, he might be able to get it around there in time for another lap, but it's going to be close. About 40 seconds to go on the clock. You could see some of the insects around here. We've been getting shots of them in some of these cameras. It's spring in Louisiana, so they are very fruitful right now, and been collecting a lot on these grills, so they'll probably need to wipe those things down by the end of this.
I think that the teams have got the Simple Green ready to wipe these cars down as soon as they come off of the racetrack. But yeah, coming around the final corner with about, I'll call it 8 seconds left, this will be interesting.
Okay, so I'm watching the flag stand to see if they're going to wave the white for him. 1 second left. No, they did not wave the white for him, but there was pretty much 0 left to go, so we'll see if they send him around for another time.
Yeah, I mean, he literally crossed the line as it ticked down to 0, and I think that's one of the moments as timing and scoring, you're like, was he there? Was he not there? And I'm sure that they'll figure it out here.
They'll let him know, no doubt. Just taps the brakes on the way down into 3 and 4. And then just a little bit of a lap left to go. As Capaldi, wow, Craig is fallen about 15 seconds off. So while he was able to hold on initially, Will Lucas has really just put on a show up at the front.
Done a terrific job. Like Chris was saying, I think we got to give a round of applause to really all of these drivers, right? We haven't really seen any cars 4 wheels off out here. All of the racing moves, especially down into turn number 1, where these cars are doing 150 miles an hour standing on those brakes. Everybody's been respectful. Just got to close this one out.
Well, let's not put the commentator's curse on them. We haven't seen the checkered flag for all of them yet.
This is true. It ain't over till that checkered flag falls, and we'll watch carefully to see what happens this time by coming up into the braking of turn 11. So we are getting the white flag this time. Okay, so this is going to be one more to go for Will Lucas. Was just fast enough that he was able to sneak across there. And excellent job by all the drivers. We've only had 2 of them go a lap down over the course of this race. So everybody doing an impressive job finding the speed over these test sessions and then multiple practice sessions into this race to get close. As there it is, white flag, 1 to go for Will to take the maiden victory in Mustang Cup.
Just got to keep it together for one more lap. And something I was noticing, it seems like out of the back end of this number 34 car, maybe by the rear differential, something might be hanging down off the underside of it. It doesn't seem to be affecting the performance of it at all, but the way these drivers are using those apex curbs and even using those exit rumble curbs, not surprised if something maybe shook loose under there.
Down through 3 and 4 once again. Very long left-hand corner, that one, that just opens up. And then same deal here with turn 5, just starts to see the apex ease as you come out of the corner. And that's why you see them go so wide out to those curbs. But then it's off into the triple apexer of 6, 7, and 8, where again they use quite a bit of those rumble strips off to the outside. And so far it has not shaken the 34 off the front. I have to say, Joey, he has been looking strong all weekend long.
The consistency has been there the entire time this race, and you look at his driving line through each one of these corners, he's taking the same line every single lap. He's staying off of the curbs and the high-speed stuff, yet he's climbing all over them in the slow-speed stuff. Will definitely understands the platform underneath him, at least for now, and he's performing at a great level.
Into the braking of 11, gets a little bit of curb on the inside as once again he just kind of glances and rides along the curb of turn 12. All he has to do is get it around the right-hander and he is home free to victory lane. The number 34 of Will Lucas, as he exits the final corner, becomes our first ever winner in the Ford Mustang Cup here at NOLA Motorsports Park.
Perfectly executed from the driver of the number 34, and about 15 seconds later we are going to get our Dark Horse Legends winner. That is Craig Capaldi in that white number 68 on the front straightaway right now. He will win round number 1.
Craig should be proud of that performance for sure. Cochran looking like he's going to be able to claim a second place after a spirited battle for the overall third. We're waiting for him to come around, yet we're just about going to get him in picture here as he comes onto that main straight and to the checkered flag. In fact, he's going to leave Smither, who he was fighting with, behind by a couple seconds here.
And I'm just noticing these last few laps out of Cochran, out of Smither, they're terrific laps, 149s. And remember, that's what the leaders were running up at the front of this race. So I think that's going to be great to go back, download that data, and a confidence boost for those drivers going into race 2.
Smither with a podium on his first go out, while Buell crosses the line, takes himself a podium finish in the Dark Horse class, and then last behind him is Miller Richmond, just outside of that Dark Horse podium, but still should be proud of that finish after he had to make his own overtake on John Strauss earlier. John going to be our last driver to complete all the laps here in today's race. Again, I have to say a huge thanks, Chris, for coming up and giving us your insight and telling us what all Ford has planned.
Thank you so much to you both for having me. What a terrific round 1 of Mustang Cup. Excited, looking forward to tomorrow and of course the rest of the season. Next stop on our tour is the famed Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. So different temperatures, an entirely different track for these drivers to get to grips with. But first but foremost, we must look forward to the race 2 for Mustang Cup here at NOLA tomorrow.
Yeah. Parnelli Cup will be our next one tomorrow, Sunday afternoon. But quick rundown of your finishing order. It is going to be Will Lucas, your overall winner, with Craig Capaldi, your winner and second place overall, finishing behind him in the Dark Horse Legends. Then you've got Chase Cochran finishing P3, Nick Smither in 4th. Cale Buell comes home P5 today, Miller Richmond in 6th, and John Strauss in 7th. Walter Bobka will be P8. Andrew Hordes rounds up the 9-car field. We've got more action to come, though, because up next, it will be our podium ceremonies here at NOLA.